My mom forced us to pretend we were conjoined twins for money. Everything started falling apart when I was 6 years old, and my mom saw conjoined twins on the news. She turned to look at me and my identical twin Anna, studying our faces like she was doing math in her head. Then she said it out loud, casual as anything. "If you two had just been born all twisted up together, I could have been rich by now." Her eyes got this weird shine to them, and I watched her face change like she was solving a puzzle. That was the moment everything shifted, though I didn't understand it yet. 3 days later, Mom called us into her sewing room. She was holding up these matching pink outfits she'd sewn together at the sides with careful stitching. The fabric connected at the hip and ribs, making them look like one strange garment for two bodies. "Put these on," she said, and her voice had that tone that meant we shouldn't ask questions. Anna and I squeezed into the outfit together and immediately started tripping over each other. Our legs tangled, and we fell twice just trying to cross the room. Mom clapped her hands together, and her smile got wider. "Perfect. Now walk to the door and back, so I can film this." We stumbled across the sewing room while she held up her phone, recording every awkward step. Anna rolled her eyes at me when we fell for the third time, both of us landing on the carpet in a heap of pink fabric. We both wanted to rip the stupid outfit off right there, but Mom's face had that look. The one that meant arguing would make things worse. She made us wear those connected clothes every single day after that, practicing our movements until we could walk without falling. But that wasn't enough for her. It was never going to be enough. Soon Mom started gluing patches of our skin together at the hip and ribs every morning before breakfast. She'd make us stand facing each other in the bathroom while she opened this industrial adhesive bottle. "Hold still," she'd say, squeezing the glue onto our skin in thick lines. Then she'd press us together and hold us there for 60 seconds while the bond set. "You need to look authentic if this is going to work." The glue burned immediately, this sharp chemical sting that made my eyes water. It pulled whenever we moved wrong, tugging at our skin like it was trying to tear us apart from the inside. Anna would pick at the edges when Mom wasn't looking, her fingernails working at the bond. She hated it as much as I did back then. The worst part was showering at the end of each day. Mom made us wear swimsuits and shower together to maintain the illusion, even though the water made the glue sting like fire. We'd stand there under the spray, trying not to cry while the adhesive slowly dissolved enough for us to separate. Then we'd have to do it all over again the next morning. Mom coached us for hours on our backstory until we could recite it in our sleep. We supposedly shared a liver and some intestines. Doctors said we'd die if anyone tried to separate us. She made us practice crying about our condition in the mirror, watching our reflections, and critiquing our performances. "More tears," she'd demand, standing behind us. "Think about never being able to be apart from each other. Think about dying young." Anna was terrible at fake crying at first. Her face would scrunch up wrong, and the tears wouldn't come. Mom would scream at her to try harder, to dig deeper, to make it real. Eventually, Anna got the hang of it, learning to summon tears on command. But she'd always make faces at me in the mirror when Mom turned away. She'd cross her eyes or stick out her tongue, trying to make me laugh. I'd have to bite my cheek hard to keep from breaking character. Our first gig was at this medical oddities convention in a hotel ballroom downtown. Mom charged $50 for photos with us. People would come up and stare at where we were connected, reaching out to touch the glue line. They'd ask if it hurt, if we could feel each other's pain, what it was like sharing organs. One creepy guy asked if we'd have to consummate relationships together when we got older. I felt sick, but Anna just stared at him blankly. Anna would say our practice lines in this dead monotone voice that made Mom pinch her arm between photos. "Smile more," Mom would hiss at her. "You're ruining everything with that attitude." Anna would plaster on the fakest smile I'd ever seen, all teeth and no warmth. We both counted down the minutes until we could go home and peel apart. The money was insane though. Mom booked us on morning shows and medical documentaries within weeks. We had to sit there on TV while hosts asked invasive questions about using the bathroom and dating and our future. Mom would dab her eyes with tissues and talk about her brave special girls who handled their condition with such grace. During one interview, Anna grabbed my hand under the table when they asked about our future and whether we'd want families someday. Probably just staying in character, but her palm was sweaty like she was actually nervous about something specific. The host kept pushing, asking if we discussed it with doctors. whether pregnancy would be possible. Anna's grip got tighter and tighter until I thought she might break my fingers. Her nails dug into my palm, and I could feel her pulse racing through her skin. At night, we'd lie in our separate beds and complain about how much our skin hurt from the glue. Anna had this whole routine of putting aloe vera on the red marks, smoothing it over the burned patches. "I'm going to have scars forever," she'd say, staring at her reflection in the mirror. We'd fantasize about running away once we turned 18. I told her my plan one night while we were both lying in the dark. "I'll go to New York and you go to LA. As far apart as possible so we can finally have our own lives." Anna just hummed and changed the subject to something else. I thought she was just scared of thinking too far ahead. We lasted 8 months before it all went to hell. We were at this charity gala for children with rare medical conditions, standing in our connected outfit while donors took photos. A real pediatric surgeon came up for a photo with us. He stared at where we were connected and frowned, leaning in closer. "Interesting," he said slowly. "Your connection point seems to have migrated since your appearance on Channel 7 last month." Mom tried to hustle us away immediately, her hand tight on my shoulder. But he followed us across the ballroom, his voice getting louder. He called security and made a huge scene about medical fraud and stolen donations. The whole ballroom stopped and stared at us. People started whispering and taking photos on their phones. I could see them filming as the surgeon explained we were frauds, that we weren't really conjoined at all. Mom drove home doing 90 on the freeway, both hands gripping the wheel. Anna stared out the window the whole time, not saying anything. Her face was blank, like she'd gone somewhere else in her head. Mom locked us in our room when we got home. We could hear her on the phone all night through the door. First screaming at someone, her voice going high and sharp. Then switching to this sweet begging voice that was somehow worse. "We're so screwed," I said to Anna, sitting on my bed. She just sat on her bed picking at her nails, not looking at me. "Maybe it's finally over though," I said, trying to sound hopeful. "Maybe we can go back to normal school and normal life." Anna didn't answer, which was weird. I figured she was just scared of what Mom would do to us for getting exposed. The next morning, Mom sat us down on my bed. We were still glued from yesterday because she'd been too distracted to dissolve the adhesive. My skin was raw and bleeding where I'd tried to pick at it during the night. "I found a solution," Mom said. Her eyes had that dangerous shine that meant something horrible was coming. "There's a surgeon in Mexico who specializes in unique procedures. He can make you girls into what you were always meant to be. Real conjoined twins. Permanent and beautiful. No one will ever call you frauds again." I felt like I was drowning. My hands started shaking, and I couldn't get enough air into my lungs. But Anna grabbed Mom's hands and tears started rolling down her face. Real tears, not the fake ones from our performances. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Thank you for keeping us together." She turned to me with the biggest smile I'd ever seen on her face. "We'll never have to be apart. Isn't that perfect? We'll never be alone again." Mom smiled back at her like Anna had just said exactly what she wanted to hear. I realized with absolute horror that my sister wasn't crying from fear at all. She was crying from joy. Anna squeezed my hand, and her palm was warm and damp, trembling slightly. She leaned close and whispered that the surgery would make everything perfect, like we were always meant to be. Her breath smelled like the mint gum Mom gave us after meals. Mom watched us with wet eyes and said we'd leave for Mexico in 3 days. She'd already wired half the payment to the clinic. The number hit me like cold water. 3 days. 72 hours until someone cut us together forever. My throat closed up and I couldn't make words come out. I just nodded while my sister smiled at me like I'd finally agreed to something beautiful. Mom clapped her hands once and left the room. I heard the lock click from the outside. I sat on my bed and started checking every place where yesterday's glue tore my skin when I tried to pick it off. The raw patches on my ribs were the worst, weeping clear fluid that stuck to my shirt. My hip had 3 spots that looked like burns, the edges pink and angry. Anna hummed while she put aloe on her own marks, completely calm. She smoothed the gel over her skin in small circles, and her face stayed relaxed and content. That's when it really hit me. Mom's plan wasn't just a threat anymore. It was a countdown to something I couldn't undo. And my sister was counting down with joy instead of fear. Mom came back an hour later with our phones in her hands. She held them up and announced she was keeping them for the planning phase so we could focus on preparing. She put them in her purse, and I watched my last connection to the outside world disappear into that black leather bag. Anna didn't even look up from her book, like losing our phones was nothing. I felt the walls getting smaller. The bedroom window had bars we'd never questioned before. The door locked from the outside. Even our phones were gone now. Every piece of the world beyond this room was being cut away. At lunch, Anna thanked Mom again for making us whole. Her voice shaky with emotion. She called it our destiny to never be separated and reached across the table to squeeze Mom's hand. I pushed food around my plate while they talked about how honest our lives would finally be. No more pretending. No more glue that came off at night. The word destiny made me want to scream because Anna really believed this. I looked at my twin sister and didn't recognize her anymore. Same face as mine, but completely different person inside. While Mom did laundry, I tested the door hinges with my fingernail. One screw on the bottom hinge was slightly loose, wiggling when I pressed it. I moved to the bathroom and checked the window, measuring it with my eyes. Big enough to squeeze through if I removed the screen. I memorized which floorboards creaked on my way back. The third board from the bathroom door. The one next to Anna's bed. I saw Mom's car keys sitting on the hall table through the crack in the door. These tiny observations felt like the only power I had left. Small pieces of information I was collecting like weapons. Mom returned with printed forms she called consent paperwork. She spread them across the kitchen table, her fingers smoothing out the wrinkles. She explained in this weirdly gentle voice how the clinic specialized in unique body modifications and clinical beauty. She stroked Anna's hair while she talked about the surgery creating something precious and rare. Anna leaned into Mom's hand like a cat being petted. The tenderness in Mom's voice made my skin crawl worse than her anger ever did. When she was angry, I knew where I stood. This soft, loving voice felt like poison wrapped in sugar. I found a safety pin in the bathroom drawer and hid it in my sock. The metal was cold against my ankle. When Mom showered, I snuck to the router in the hall closet and memorized the Wi-Fi password printed on the bottom. Each small act of preparation felt like holding my breath underwater. Mom pulled out our birth certificates and passports from her filing cabinet and stacked them on the counter. She talked about border crossing timing and how we'd say we were going for specialized medical treatment if anyone asked. She had hotel reservations printed with confirmation numbers highlighted in yellow. A route mapped with rest stops marked in red pen. Watching her organize our trip like a normal vacation made everything feel horribly real and close. That night, I whispered to Anna about our old plan to run away at 18. To go to different cities and finally live separately. She rolled over to face me in the dark. I could see her eyes reflecting the street light from outside. She said she didn't want separate futures anymore. That being apart sounded lonely and wrong. Asked if she remembered wanting her own life. She said she grew up and realized we're better together. Her voice was calm and sure, like she'd been thinking about this for years. Anna kept talking in the dark. She said the surgery would end all the lying and performing, that we could just be ourselves without glue and costumes.
She called it honesty at last.
Said she was tired of the fake version when we could have the real thing. I lay there listening and realized she'd reframed permanent mutilation as authenticity. My sister's logic had twisted into something I couldn't reach or fix. She saw surgical fusion as truth and our separate bodies as the lie. I spent the rest of that day trying to remember the surgeon who exposed us at the charity gala. His face kept coming back to me, the way he'd frowned at our connection point. I couldn't pull his name from my memory, but I knew he worked at a children's hospital somewhere downtown. If I could find him, if I could get a message out somehow, maybe he'd help again. Mom made us shower together that night with the bathroom door open so she could supervise. The water ran loud and the exhaust fan rattled. I realized the noise might cover other sounds. Mom's phone sat on the counter where she'd left it. I grabbed it fast and ducked behind the shower curtain. My hands shook so hard, I almost dropped it twice. I opened her news alerts and scrolled back through weeks of saved articles about the charity gala scandal. There it was. Dr. Rena Murphy, at Children's Medical Center. I repeated the name in my head over and over while I cleared the search history. Dr. Rena Murphy, Children's Medical Center. I put the phone back exactly where Mom had left it and got back under the water before she noticed anything wrong. After the shower, I grabbed toilet paper from under the sink and tore off a small strip. I found my eyeliner in the cabinet and wrote Dr. Rena Murphy Children's Medical in letters so tiny I could barely read them. I folded the paper smaller and smaller until it was the size of a pill. Then I tucked it inside my bra while Mom dried Anna's hair in the other room. The paper pressed against my skin and felt like it was burning me. This tiny dangerous secret that could save me or get me killed. At dinner, Mom described the interview she was planning for after the surgery. She acted out the whole thing right there at the table, playing both the interviewer and herself. She'd ask a question in a high professional voice, then answer it in her own voice with fake tears rolling down her face. Anna watched her with this look of total admiration. I forced myself to nod and smile at the right moments. The chicken on my plate tasted like sand, but I kept chewing and swallowing because showing disgust would give me away. Mom got up to move a laundry basket from the hallway. I saw our passports sitting on the hall table in a stack of papers. I didn't think. I just grabbed them while her back was turned and shoved them down my shirt. Then I slipped into the bedroom. My heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone in the house could hear it. I dropped to my knees and pried up the heating vent cover behind my bed. I shoved the passports deep inside behind the dust and old receipts. Then pressed the cover back into place. Mom kept folding towels in the hallway like nothing had happened. I sat on my bed and tried to breathe normally while my pulse hammered in my ears. Anna came in a few minutes later and caught me staring at the vent. She asked what I was thinking about with this searching look on her face. She studied my expression like she was reading a mirror. I said I was just nervous about the trip, that I was scared of the surgery. She kept watching me for another long moment. I could see her trying to figure out if I was lying. Finally, she turned away and started getting ready for bed. Mom left her phone on the counter again when she went to check the mail. I grabbed it and locked myself in the bathroom. I typed out everything. Who we were, what Mom was planning, our address, the Mexico timeline. That we needed help. I included Dr. Murphy's name, so she'd know I was the one writing. The words sat there on the screen like a loaded gun I hadn't fired yet. I saved it as a draft instead of sending because I needed to figure out how to get it out without Mom seeing it in her sent messages. But it was written now. It existed. That felt like something. That night I lay in bed and remembered all the times Anna had whispered, "We're perfect together," during our practice sessions. How she'd squeeze my hand during interviews when I started to crack. I used to think she was just being supportive, helping us survive Mom's scheme together. Now I realized she'd meant every single word. She'd been building this fantasy of permanent fusion for years while I dreamed of escape. Every time she'd said we were meant to be together, she'd actually believed it. Every time she'd held my hand, she'd been imagining a future where we could never let go. I'd been sleeping 3 feet away from someone whose deepest wish was to trap me inside her body forever. I woke up the next morning to the sound of drilling. Mom was installing a baby monitor camera on our dresser, angling it to cover both beds. She said it was for night safety in case we needed her. But I could see the real reason in her eyes. She sensed me pulling away. Anna waved at the camera and made a joke about being reality TV stars. She seemed completely unbothered by another layer of surveillance. I waved too and smiled and acted like it was funny. But I was calculating camera angles and blind spots in my head. The school called Mom's phone later that morning. I heard her through the wall, lying in this smooth, calm voice. She told them we were recovering from preliminary procedures for our condition. That we'd be back soon with medical documentation. The attendance clerk sounded concerned and asked more questions. For just a second, I felt this tiny spark of hope that someone outside our house actually cared we were missing. But Mom promised to send paperwork and the clerk accepted it. I heard her hang up and knew that door had closed. I waited until Mom was in the shower the next morning and grabbed a makeup wipe from the bathroom trash. My hands shook as I pulled out Anna's black eyeliner from the drawer. I wrote "Help P" in tiny letters on the back of the wipe. I added our address underneath in numbers so small I could barely read them. The library book Mom had checked out 3 weeks ago sat on the hall table with a due date stamp, showing it was overdue. I slid the makeup wipe between pages in the middle, where someone might actually see it when they processed the return. Maybe a librarian would find it and call someone. Maybe they'd just throw it away. I was collecting desperate moves like bullets in a gun I didn't know how to fire. Anna came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, and I shoved the book back on the table before she could see what I was doing. She walked past me into our bedroom without saying anything. But her eyes followed me in a way that made my skin crawl. I waited until she went to get dressed. Then I saw her journal sitting open on her bed. I knew I shouldn't read it, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. The entry was dated yesterday, and it said, "If we're one body, I can keep her forever," in letters that got bigger and darker as the sentence went on. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up right there on the carpet. This wasn't about Mom's control anymore. Anna wanted to own me too. She wanted to make sure I could never leave her, never have my own life, never exist as anything except half of her. I closed the journal and backed away from it like it had teeth. My twin sister wanted to trap me inside her body forever, and she thought that was love. I heard Mom's footsteps in the hallway, and I sat down on my bed trying to look normal. Mom walked past our door carrying her laptop. 5 minutes later, I heard her on a phone call. I crept down the hall to where she'd left the laptop open on the counter. The screen showed her bank account with a transaction list pulled up. Right there in black and white, I saw transfers from something called medical fund donations into her personal checking account.
$15,000.
Then another one for $8,000. Then another for $12,000. She was stealing money that people had donated to help us. Money they thought was going to our medical care. Moving it straight into her own account to pay for the nightmare surgery in Mexico. I memorized the account numbers and dates as fast as I could. The routing number, the transaction IDs, everything I could fit in my brain before Mom came back. I heard her footsteps and I was back in the hallway before she rounded the corner. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I had proof now. Real proof of theft and fraud that I could tell someone if I ever got the chance. I waited until Mom was deep in conversation on her phone. Then I went to our bedroom and knelt down by the heating vent behind my bed. I used my fingernails to carefully pry up the metal cover without making noise. The passports were still there in the dust where I'd hidden them. Seeing them gave me this tiny burst of control. She couldn't take us to Mexico without these. Anna was watching me from her bed when I turned around. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were narrow and suspicious. I grabbed Mom's phone when she left it on the counter while she showered. I pulled up the drafted email to Dr. Murphy that I'd written days ago. My hand shook so badly I could barely type. I attached the photo I'd taken of my glued skin with a timestamp showing from 2 days ago. The burns were clear in the picture. The torn skin where I tried to pick the adhesive off. The red marks that would probably scar forever. I hit send and watched the message disappear into the outbox. Then I immediately went to sent messages and deleted it. Cleared the trash folder. Cleared the recently deleted folder. Wiped every trace that the email had ever existed from Mom's phone. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone twice. The message was out there now. Dr. Murphy would see it. Someone would know what was happening to us. I just had to hope she'd respond before Mom dragged us across the border. I went back to our bedroom and lay down on my bed trying to look calm. Mom's voice carried from the kitchen where she'd left her phone on speaker. She was arguing with someone about payment terms for the procedure. Her voice went from sweet to angry to begging and back to sweet again. She haggled over whether they'd accept cash, how much of a deposit they needed up front, whether they could do the surgery sooner if she paid more. The way she talked about cutting into us was so casual and businesslike, like she was buying a used car instead of planning to permanently fuse her daughters together. Anna came into the bathroom while I was washing my hands. She closed the door behind her. Her voice was low and urgent when she asked where the passports were. I lied and said I hadn't seen them, that Mom probably moved them somewhere safe for the trip. Anna stared at me hard for a long moment. She said she knew I was hiding something, that twins can't lie to each other, that she could always tell when I wasn't being honest. I stared back at her and realized we weren't really twins anymore. Not in any way that actually mattered. She wanted to be cut open and sewn to me forever. I wanted to run as far away as possible. We were strangers who just happened to share DNA and a face. Mom had a tape measure and a black sharp in her hands when she came into our room. She measured our heights and marked our hips with the marker. Drew lines across our ribs where she said the connection points would be. She narrated each step in this weird calm voice like she was a surgeon instead of our mother planning our mutilation. She explained how they'd need to match our spines, how they'd fuse our pelvic bones together, how the scarring would be significant but beautiful in its own way. I felt the marker dragging across my skin, leaving black lines. I wanted to throw up. Anna stood perfectly still and let Mom mark her up like a diagram. I grabbed a page from my homework notebook when Mom finally let us go back to our room. I wrote "Call CPS" in big letters with our address underneath. Then I added Mexico surgery in 2 days at the bottom. I folded the paper as small as I could get it. I waited until Mom took the kitchen trash bag to the curb that night. I shoved it deep into the bag under coffee grounds and food scraps. It was a stupid long shot, but garbage collectors were people. People sometimes looked at weird things they found in the trash. I was throwing messages in bottles everywhere I could reach. Mom's laptop pinged with a notification while she was making dinner. I saw the screen light up from across the kitchen. An auto reply from Dr. Murphy's email saying she'd received my message and would respond within 24 hours. The message appeared in the spam folder instead of the inbox. I walked past the laptop like I was getting water. I quickly marked the message as read so Mom wouldn't notice the notification. Then I went back to setting the table with my heart racing. The proof that my message got out made me feel dizzy with relief and terror mixed together. Someone knew now. Someone official who could help. But I didn't know if they'd respond in time or if Mom would find out I'd sent it. The next afternoon, Anna walked into the kitchen where Mom was checking her phone. She held up her own screen showing a Facebook post from someone named Jennifer who donated $300 to our medical fund. The post said, "Mom is a fraud and a scammer who used fake sick kids to steal money." The comments underneath were multiplying while I watched from the doorway. People were tagging other donors and demanding refunds. Someone posted a screenshot from the charity gala showing the pediatric surgeon confronting us. Mom's face went completely white and then flooded red. She grabbed Anna's phone and started frantically deleting our social media accounts, blocking people, reporting posts for harassment. Her fingers flew across the screen, and she was muttering under her breath about jealous liars trying to ruin everything. Anna watched Mom's panic with this calm expression that made my stomach hurt. Mom threw Anna's phone on the counter and announced we were going dark online. No more social media, no more public presence until this blew over. That night, I was lying in bed pretending to sleep when I heard Mom tearing through the house looking for our passports. Drawers slammed open in the kitchen. Papers scattered across the floor. She was in the hallway closet throwing shoe boxes and old coats onto the ground. Her voice got higher and sharper as she searched, calling out to herself about where she put them. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing steady, but my heart was trying to break through my ribs. Anna was in her bed across the room, and I could feel her watching me. Even though I couldn't see her in the dark, she knew I took them. She'd been tracking everything I did, every small act of resistance. And now she was just waiting to see what I'd do. Mom moved to her bedroom, and I heard things breaking. Glass shattered against a wall. Something heavy hit the floor. She was destroying her own room looking for those passports. And I was frozen in bed with my face blank and confused like I had no idea what she was searching for. Anna's breathing pattern didn't change. She just lay there in the darkness, watching me keep my secret. The next morning, Anna got out of bed and walked calmly to the heating vent beside my dresser. She didn't say anything to me or look at Mom. She just knelt down and removed the metal cover with her bare hands, reached into the dusty space behind it, and pulled out our passports. She stood up and handed them to Mom without a single word. Then she turned and looked at me with this expression that was half pity and half triumph, like she was sorry I tried but glad I failed. I realized she'd been watching me for days, tracking every movement I made, every place I looked. She saw me hide them, and she waited until the perfect moment to expose me. She chose Mom's plan over my escape. She chose permanent fusion over my freedom. The betrayal cut deeper than any of Mom's glue ever did. Mom took the passports, and her whole face lit up with relief and something darker. She looked at me, and I saw her putting together what happened. That I tried to sabotage her. That I wasn't on board with this plan at all. She didn't yell or hit me. She just smiled, this tight smile, and said we're leaving tonight instead of tomorrow. That she's moving up the timeline. Anna nodded like that was perfectly reasonable. And I felt the walls closing in. 2 police officers knocked on the door an hour later, and Mom transformed instantly. Her voice went soft and concerned. She invited them in with this worried mother expression on her face. She explained we're homeschooled because of our medical condition. The officers asked to see us, and Mom led them to our room where Anna and I were sitting on our beds. They asked if we're okay. If anyone is hurting us. Anna and I have been coached so many times that we fell into our script automatically. Yes, we're fine. Yes, we're homeschooled. Yes, we have a rare medical condition that requires special care. No one is hurting us. Mom is taking good care of us. The words came out of my mouth without me even thinking about them. Like I was a robot programmed to lie to anyone who asked. The officers looked uncomfortable, but they couldn't find anything wrong. Our room was clean. We were dressed and fed. We answered all their questions correctly. They gave Mom a card with the number to call if we need help. And then they left. I watched them walk back to their car from the window and realized I'm too well trained to break character. Even when rescue is standing right there in front of me. After the police left, I waited until Mom went to the bathroom. Then I checked her spam folder again on her laptop. There was a full response from Dr. Murphy with a timestamp from this morning. The email said she's forwarding my message to CPS and asking if we're in immediate danger. She included her direct hospital number. She wrote that she remembers us from the charity gala, that she's been worried about us since the exposure happened. She said someone official will be reaching out within the next day or two to check on our safety. I took a screenshot on Mom's phone as fast as I could, then deleted the email from the spam folder and cleared the trash. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely work the touchscreen. For the first time in days, I felt like maybe I'm not completely alone in this. Someone with authority knows what's happening. Someone is actually coming to help. Anna sat on my bed that night after Mom went to sleep. She looked at me with this intense expression. Her voice came out low and desperate. Don't blow this for me. Not for us. For her. She told me she's thought about being permanently connected since she was 8 years old. That it's all she's ever really wanted. I asked her why. She explained that being apart feels like missing a limb. Like half of her is always gone. She described this ache she's had her whole life whenever we're in separate rooms or doing separate activities. She said the surgery would finally make her feel whole and complete. I stared at my identical twin and realized her need to fuse isn't Mom's sickness. It's her own. Anna has wanted this for years, and Mom's plan just gave her permission to admit it out loud. She asked me to understand, to see how perfect we could be together, to stop fighting what we're meant to be. I told her I can't do that I need to be my own person, that being cut open and sewn together would destroy me. She looked at me like I'm the broken one, like my need for separation is the real problem. Mom packed a duffel bag after Anna went back to her bed. I watched through the crack in our door as she filled it with medical supplies from the bathroom cabinet. Adhesive bottles, gauze rolls, bandages, bottles of pills I don't recognize. She added thick stacks of cash wrapped in rubber bands from her bedroom safe. She checked her phone and wrote something down on a piece of paper, then folded the paper and put it in her pocket. She came to our door and told us to sleep in our clothes because we're leaving at 4 a.m. before the next CPS visit can happen. Anna nodded and changed into jeans and a sweatshirt. I did the same because refusing would just make Mom watch me closer. I lay in bed fully dressed with my shoes next to the mattress, staring at the ceiling and counting down the hours until I either escape or disappear forever. While Mom took a shower, I slipped into the bathroom and quietly unscrewed the toilet tank lid. My hands were sweating and the porcelain was heavy and cold. I pulled out the note I wrote earlier on a scrap of paper towel. I've written Dr. Murphy's name, our names, and our address in thick black Sharpie letters. I taped the note to the inside of the tank lid where it won't get wet, then carefully lowered the lid back into place. If CPS comes back and searches the house thoroughly, they might find it. At 3 a.m, Mom's phone lit up on her nightstand. I could see the text preview from across the room because she left her door open. The message said mandatory reporter has been notified and CPS will attempt contact within 24 hours. Dr. Murphy followed through. Someone official knows what's happening and is coming to check on us. I felt this surge of validation that my email actually worked. But I also felt terror because now it's a race between rescue and Mom's ability to run. Mom burst into our room at 3:30 in the morning and dragged us out of bed. She was already dressed and her hair was pulled back tight. She grabbed our arms and pulled us toward the car, throwing the duffel bag and 2 smaller bags into the trunk. The engine started, and we were peeling out of the driveway before I was even fully awake. Anna sat quietly in the back seat next to me while I pressed my face to the window and memorized every street sign we passed. Oak Avenue, Maple Drive, Highway 101 South. I counted the mile markers as we hit the highway heading toward the border. Marker 247. Marker 251. Marker 256. I was tracking our route like breadcrumbs. Even though I didn't know if anyone was following or if anyone would ever find this trail, I was leaving in my head. The sky was still dark and the highway was empty except for a few trucks. Mom drove fast with both hands tight on the wheel. Anna stared straight ahead with this peaceful expression on her face. Like we're going on vacation instead of running from the law. I kept my face pressed to the glass and watched the world fly by. I stared at our license plate in the side mirror and burned the numbers into my brain. 7XJ4892, I said it over and over in my head while watching the mile markers fly past. Exit 267. Gas station with the broken sign. Billboard for a casino. Every detail got filed away in case I get a chance to tell someone where we've been. The sun started coming up and turned everything orange. I was still cataloging landmarks. Water tower shaped like a mushroom. Rest stop with the blue roof. Bridge over a dried-up riverbed. Mom's hands stayed tight on the wheel, and she didn't look back at us once. Anna leaned her head against the window with her eyes closed, but I knew she wasn't sleeping because her fingers kept tapping against her leg. Exit 289, town called Desert Springs, another gas station. I was building a map in my head of exactly how to get back home if I ever get the chance. The highway curved, and I saw a big green sign that said the border is 60 miles away. My stomach twisted because we're running out of road. Mom took an exit near a cluster of buildings and pulled into a diner parking lot. The place was called Rosa's, and the sign out front said Exit 312. I memorized both while Mom parked the car. She turned around and looked at us with that fake sweet smile. She told us we're going to eat breakfast, and if anyone asks, we're visiting family in Mexico for a wedding. She said we have a medical condition, and we're very brave about it. Her hand gripped my arm hard enough to leave marks when she pulled me out of the car. Inside the diner smells like coffee and bacon. There's a waitress wiping down tables. Mom picked a booth in the back corner and slid in next to Anna, leaving me on the other side. The waitress came over and Mom ordered for all of us in this cheerful voice like we're a normal family on a normal trip. I looked at the menu and saw the diner's full name printed at the top. Rosa's Family Restaurant, Exit 312, Highway 78 South. I repeated it in my head while the waitress poured water. Mom leaned across the table and told us again what to say if Border Patrol stops us. We're visiting Aunt Carmen for her daughter's wedding. We have all our documentation. The doctor said travel is fine as long as we're careful. The waitress brought our food, and I pushed eggs around my plate while Mom talked about the clinic and how nice the surgeon sounded on the phone. She said, he does beautiful work, and we're going to be so happy with the results. I needed to use the bathroom, and Mom's eyes narrowed when I asked. But she can't really say no in public. She told Anna to go with me, and I felt my chance slipping away. The bathroom was small and smelled like fake flowers. Anna stood by the sinks while I went into the stall. I saw the toilet paper dispenser mounted on the wall. I grabbed a paper napkin from my pocket that I took from the table. I pulled out the pen I stole from Mom's cup holder. My hands shook while I wrote our license plate number in tiny letters. 7XJ4892. Then I wrote Highway 78 South toward Mexico border. Then I wrote kidnapped by mother for surgery. The words looked pathetic and small on the thin napkin, but I folded it up tight and shoved it behind the toilet paper roll where someone cleaning might find it. I flushed and came out and washed my hands while Anna watched me in the mirror. Her face looked tired and sad. We walked back to the table and I slid into the booth. Mom had already paid the check. Back at the table, Anna leaned close to me. Her voice came out low and angry. She said the napkin thing is pathetic and I'm embarrassing myself with these stupid notes nobody will ever find. She asked me to choose us. To stop fighting what we're meant to be. I looked at my identical twin and saw someone I don't recognize anymore. Someone who wants to trap me inside her body forever. I whispered back that I'd rather die separated than live as half of her. Her face went white and then red. She turned away from me. We drove for another 2 hours in complete silence. The landscape got flatter and drier. The signs started showing distances in kilometers too. We pulled off at a rundown motel with peeling paint and a sign that flickered. Mom paid cash at the front desk and got a key to room 116. Inside, there were two beds with ugly floral covers and a bathroom that smelled like mold. Mom dropped our bags on the floor and said she needs a shower. She disappeared into the bathroom, and I heard the water start running. Her camera bag sat on the dresser right next to the door. I stared at it. She's never left it unattended before. Not once in the past 3 days. I looked at the door, and then at Anna, who's sitting on one of the beds staring at her phone. This might be my only chance to do something before we cross the border. I told Anna I'm going to get ice. She didn't even look up, just waved her hand. I slipped out the door in my socks before she could stop me and ran toward the lobby. My heart felt like it's trying to break through my chest. The desk clerk looked startled when I came running up and asked to use the phone. She was an older woman with gray hair. She pushed the phone across the counter toward me. I dialed 911 with fingers that barely worked. A woman's voice answered, asking what my emergency is. I whispered our license plate number and the motel name. That my mother is trying to take us to Mexico for surgery we don't want. The dispatcher asked me to speak up, and I forced my voice louder while watching the hallway. She kept me on the line, and I could hear her typing really fast. She asked for my name and age, and I told her everything while the words tumbled out too quick. She asked if I'm in immediate danger, and I said yes because we're leaving for the border as soon as Mom finishes her shower. She asked about injuries, and I described the glue burns and the scars and the months of being forced to pretend. She told me police are already on the way. Her voice sounded calm and professional, like this is just another day for her. But it's everything for me. She asked me to stay on the line, but I saw movement in the hallway. I hung up fast. Anna stood in the doorway to the lobby. Her face looked twisted with anger and something else I can't name. I tried to walk past her toward the exit, but she grabbed my arm and yanked me back. We struggled in the middle of the lobby. She's trying to drag me back to the room while I'm pulling toward the door. The adhesive residue still stuck to our skin from yesterday tears open where we're connected. I felt something warm and wet spreading across my side. Blood seeped through both our shirts where the half-healed glue burns split back open. We're both crying and fighting in this gross motel lobby. The desk clerk stood up looking alarmed and reached for her phone. Anna's nails dug into my arm, and she's screaming that I'm ruining everything, that I'm destroying us. I screamed back that there is no us anymore and tried to wrench free. Mom came running out of the room with wet hair and saw us covered in blood. She started screaming that I'm hurting myself for attention, that I'm self-harming to sabotage the surgery. She tried to grab both of us and pull us back to the room. But the desk clerk had come around the counter now. The woman looked scared and confused and kept her hand on the phone. Mom's voice switched instantly to that sweet tone. She explained I'm having a mental health crisis, that I do this sometimes for attention. She said we have a rare medical condition, and the stress makes me act out. The clerk looked uncertain and glanced between Mom's sweet face and the blood soaking through our shirts. I could see her trying to decide what's real and what's a lie. Then I heard sirens getting closer. Mom's face changed. Police cars pulled into the parking lot with their lights flashing red and blue across the motel windows. Mom's expression went from sweet to desperate to completely blank in about 3 seconds. Officers got out and walked toward the lobby. One of them knocked hard on our room door, calling Mom's name. The lobby phone rang and the desk clerk answered it and then looked at me. She said someone's asking for me by name and held out the phone. I grabbed it and the dispatcher asked if I'm okay. I said yes, I'm here, I'm the one who called. Mom's whole face cracked like a mask falling off. She just stood there while the officers came into the lobby. One of them saw the blood and called for EMS. Another one separated Mom from us. Anna sank down onto the floor, still holding her side and crying. Mom just stared at me with this look I've never seen before, like she's finally realizing she's lost. One of the officers walked over and asked if I'm okay. I nodded even though I'm shaking so hard my teeth chatter. He guided me to a chair in the corner while his partner talked to Mom in this calm but firm voice. Another officer went to check on Anna in our motel room. I heard her crying through the walls, these high-pitched sobs that made my chest hurt. The ambulance pulled up outside and 2 paramedics came in with their bags and equipment. A woman with her hair in a ponytail knelt down next to me and asked if she can look at my injuries. I lifted up my shirt and showed her the blood soaking through where Anna and I tore apart. The raw patches on my ribs and hip. She took out her phone and started photographing everything, asking me to turn this way and that way so she can get all the angles. The older scars from months of glue showed up white and shiny against my skin. She photographed those too, making notes on a tablet. From the room, I heard Anna screaming that I'm trying to cut her off from me, that I'm destroying us, that I want to ruin everything we could be together. The paramedic's face got harder with every word Anna shouted. She asked me how long this has been happening. I told her 8 months of daily gluing, the performances, the money, the plan to make it permanent in Mexico. She wrote it all down and called her partner over to document Anna's injuries too. Mom kept trying to explain to the officers that I'm mentally unstable, that I self-harm for attention. But they're not listening to her anymore. One officer was on his radio calling for CPS. Another was taking photos of the motel room, the duffel bag full of medical supplies and cash. They loaded me into the ambulance and took me to the hospital while Anna went in a different ambulance. I watched through the back window as Mom stood in the parking lot with an officer, her hands moving while she talked, still trying to sell her story to someone who might believe her. At the hospital, an ER doctor with gray hair pulled back examined every inch of where Anna and I were connected. She used this bright light to look at the burns and took samples with cotton swabs, sealing them in little plastic tubes. Her questions were gentle but specific, asking exactly how Mom applied the glue, what kind it was, how often, whether it ever got infected. When I told her 8 months, she closed her eyes for a second before writing it down in her chart. She photographed the tissue damage and the scarring, explained that the adhesive caused second-degree burns in some places, that the repeated application prevented proper healing. A nurse came in with papers for me to sign, giving permission for the photos to be used as evidence. The doctor told me I did the right thing by calling for help, that what happened to me was abuse, and it's documented now in a way that can't be denied. She put bandages on the worst spots and gave me cream for the burns. Through the curtain, I heard Anna in another exam room crying and telling her doctor that I'm lying, that Mom was helping us become our true selves. My doctor squeezed my shoulder and said she believes me, that the evidence is clear and undeniable. A police officer came in to take my statement. I went through the whole story again while he recorded it on his phone. Mom glued us together every day, made us perform, took all the money, planned surgery in Mexico to make it permanent. He nodded and wrote and asked follow-up questions about the timeline and the donations and the surgeon who exposed us at the charity gala. CPS arrived at the hospital while I was still in the exam room. A detective came in first and explained that Mom is being detained for child endangerment and fraud, that she's being processed at the police station right now. Through the window, I saw them leading Mom past in handcuffs, her wrists locked behind her back. She's still talking, her mouth moving constantly, insisting she was helping us become our true selves. The detective said Anna and I are being placed in protective custody separately, that we can't have contact right now while they investigate. A social worker appeared with paperwork and warm blankets and told me I'm safe now, that no one can hurt me anymore. They walked me out to a CPS vehicle in the hospital parking lot. I saw Anna being led to a different car on the other side of the lot. She looked back at me with this expression that's half pleading and half furious, like I've betrayed everything we could have been together. I had to look away because I can't save her from herself, can't make her understand that what she wants would destroy me. They put her in one car and me in another. I watched through my window as her car pulled out, heading east while mine went west. The last thing I saw before we turned the corner was Anna's face pressed against the glass of her window. Her mouth was forming words I can't hear. Her palm was flat against the glass, reaching toward me. I knew she's begging me to change my mind, to choose fusion over separation, to want what she wants. Tears were streaming down her face, and she looked so desperate and lost. I pressed my own hand against my window, but I didn't mouth anything back because there's nothing left to say. Our cars drove in opposite directions, and I watched until hers disappeared around a corner. The social worker in the front seat glanced back at me in the mirror and asked if I'm okay. I nodded even though I'm not sure what okay means anymore. My twin sister wanted someone to cut us together forever, and I had to call the police to stop it from happening. That's not something you just get over. The social worker introduced herself as Mercedes Murphy, and I almost laughed at the coincidence because the doctor who exposed us was also named Murphy. She said no relation when I mentioned it, that it's just a common last name. Mercedes explained that I'm going to a temporary foster placement while CPS investigates everything that happened. There's a no-contact order between me and Mom, and only limited supervised contact with Anna for now. She listed off all these rules and procedures and court dates. I sat wrapped in the hospital blanket, just nodding to everything. My brain felt like it's full of static. Like I can't quite process that I'm actually safe now. That Mom can't reach me anymore. Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. Forensic interviews where I described the glue routine in detail. Medical exams that documented every scar. Police statements and CPS reports and court hearings where I barely understood what was happening. Mom's bail hearing happened 3 weeks after the motel. The judge released her with a GPS monitor and strict no-contact orders. She can't come within 500 feet of me or Anna. Can't contact us directly or through other people. But she's out there somewhere in the world again. Mercedes placed me in a temporary foster home with a man named Matthias Bowers who had a quiet house in a neighborhood with trees and sidewalks. He showed me to a guest room with a bed and a desk and a window. The important thing he showed me was the lock on the inside of the door. He demonstrated how it works. A simple flip lock that I can engage from inside the room. He told me I'm allowed to use it whenever I want. That my privacy matters here. That this space is mine. That first night, I locked the door and lay down fully dressed because I'm still not used to the idea that I'm allowed to relax. I kept expecting Mom to burst in or Anna to appear at the window. But nothing happened. I slept for 12 hours straight. The deepest sleep I've had in months, maybe years. When I woke up, the lock was still engaged and the door was still closed, and I was still safe. That's when I started to believe that maybe this is real. That maybe I actually got away. Mercedes set up therapy appointments. The therapist's name was Pilar Aldrich, and she specialized in abuse recovery. I sat in her office and started describing the glue routine. How Mom would press our skin together every morning. How it burned and pulled and left scars. I was talking faster and faster, and then suddenly I couldn't breathe. I was crying so hard my whole body shook. Pilar handed me tissues and waited while I sobbed. She said what happened to me wasn't my fault. That I survived something terrible and I'm allowed to fall apart now. The permission to cry made me cry harder. A few weeks later, Mercedes asked if I wanted a supervised visit with Anna. My stomach dropped at the thought. I told Mercedes only if there's a therapist present and clear boundaries about what we can discuss. The visit happened in Pilar's therapy office. Anna sat on the opposite end of the couch from me. Pilar sat in a chair between us like a referee. Anna looked thinner than I remembered. There were dark circles under her eyes. She started by apologizing for not understanding how much I was hurting. But then she shifted and said we could still be together the way she wants if I'd just give it more thought. She brought up the surgery. Said it could still happen when we're 18 if I'd wait and think about it seriously. Her voice got desperate and pleading. I felt my hands start shaking. I told her I will never choose that. I need to be my own separate person. Anna's face crumbled like I'd hit her. She started crying and asking why I don't love her enough to stay connected. Pilar intervened and said we need to end the session. Anna left still crying, and I sat there feeling guilty and relieved in equal measure. 2 weeks passed. Then Mercedes handed me an envelope that came through Anna's therapist. Inside was a short note in Anna's handwriting that just said, "I miss you. I'm trying." It was the first communication we'd had in weeks that isn't about the surgery or fusion or being physically connected. Just sister to sister. Simple and honest. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I wrote back, "I miss you too. Keep trying." I gave it to Mercedes to send through the proper channels. It's not forgiveness, and it's not reconciliation. But it's something small and real between us. Mom's plea deal got finalized in court on a cold morning in November. The judge read through the terms out loud. No contact orders. Restitution payments. 5 years probation. He asked Mom if she understands and accepts all the terms. She said yes in this flat voice. The judge made it very clear that any violation of the no-contact order will result in immediate jail time. Mom signed the papers, and I watched her hand move across the page from where I was sitting 30 feet away. Something released in my chest. Not forgiveness, but the knowledge that the legal system has built a wall between us that she can't cross. I started building small routines that are just mine. Every morning I put aloe on my scars in the bathroom. Pilar gave me a journal, and I write in it before bed. I take a walk before breakfast around the neighborhood just to feel the space around my own separate body. The routines are tiny acts of claiming my individual life. Some days it feels good and freeing. Other days it feels lonely and wrong. But it always feels like mine. Like choices I'm making for myself. For months after everything fell apart, I'm settling into a long-term foster home. I wake up at 7 and put aloe on the faded scars on my ribs before getting dressed. I eat breakfast with the other foster kids and pack my lunch and walk to the bus stop alone. At school, I sit in history class next to a girl named Jamie who doesn't know anything about my past. My teachers see me as just another student. I have friends who invite me to hang out after school. Some nights, I still dream about the glue burning my skin, cameras flashing in my face, Anna's hand gripping mine until my fingers went numb. But I wake up in a room with a lock I control. I check that the door is secure. I'm in a body that's only mine. I get up and brush my teeth and make my bed and move forward. Separately. And finally,
If you enjoyed this, you'll probably like the next story too.